Hello, you wonderful people. It's British English teacher Roy here. Now, let me ask you something. Do you ever feel like your English is technically correct, but sometimes just a little bit flat? Like the grammar is fine, the vocabulary is fine, but the emotion that you want to convey isn't landing. And that's because British English lots of time relies on some powerful emphasis words, and they're words that can change the tone, the attitude, and the meaning of what you're trying to say. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you some powerful British English words that can instantly make you sound more expressive, more natural, and help you give the right emphasis to your speech. Please don't forget to like and hype this video as it really helps other learners to watch it. And if you want to learn even more about this lesson, there is a free PDF in the description below. But hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to English Right Now. That's the name of this channel, and my name is British English Teacher Roy. I've been a teacher of English for nearly 16 years, and over that time, I have helped thousands of English learners just like you with British English, slang, idioms, pronunciation in a modern British RP accent, and also looking at the culture. And in this lesson, we're going to focus on some words that could really elevate and help you to express yourself more naturally in British English. Now, I will say before we begin that not all of the words on this list are exclusively British. I say British English because that's what I teach and that's what I know. So you will know that the words on this list are safe to use in the UK, but lots of them will be used in other English-speaking countries as well. And if there are other English speakers who aren't from the UK, I'd love to hear if some of these aren't so common in your country or you have other alternatives as well. But let's crack on with the list. And first off, we're going to go for a really British one, and that is proper. This is informal and it expresses emphasis. Instead of saying something is funny, you could say, oh, that's proper funny, or oh, I'm proper tired. This is really common in spoken British English, and it's really full of kind of British personality. It is a typical British expression. Now, some people will say, oh, I am properly tired, but a lot of people just say, I'm proper tired, I'm proper excited, I'm proper enjoying this lesson. Continuing on that point of informal words, I hear a lot of English learners in Britain, in the UK, using the word super, and I'm sure that some British people do use it, but it's just not that common. Far more common is proper, so I wouldn't really say, oh, I'm super tired. I'd say I'm proper tired. Or instead of saying that's super nice, I'd say, oh, that's proper nice of you. To be honest, it sounds a bit more American English than it does British English. Yes, some people, as I say, will use it, but I personally never really use the word super. Now, before we get onto some real British classics, let's talk about the really common ones. And the first one has to be really. This is simple, but it's powerful. Instead of saying something is good, you could say that's really good. Or instead of saying, I don't like that, you could say, I really don't like that. Now, a lot of these lists are based on giving you wonderful alternatives, but this is a classic. In British English, this word adds emotional weight, and it's not really too much drama. You should really let your intonation do the work with this word. So that's really good. It's probably a bit stronger than that's really good. Notice that I'm kind of elongating the vowels to give a bit more emphasis. Talking about common ones, yes, we do use the word very, but I would say we use it sparingly. British people do not avoid very. I hear a lot of these videos on social media saying, don't say very, like very tired, say exhausted. And yeah, you can do, or you could say actually knackered or shattered to sound even a little bit more British. But we do use the word very, we just use it selectively. I could say, I'm very pleased, or that's very kind of you. When you don't overuse this word, it sounds genuine, not basic. But to be honest, we do say, I'm very tired. A lot of English learners, especially when they're starting their English language journey, they tend to use or overuse the word very. So is pure emotional emphasis. That's nice. Sounds much better when you say, oh, that's so nice, or I am so tired, or I am so excited. We often say this word, so, with a lengthened vowel to add that little bit more emphasis to it. So instead of like, oh, that's real. So instead of saying something is difficult, I could say, oh, it's so difficult. But I could also say, oh, that is so difficult, you know? adding a little bit of emphasis with that elongation of vowels. Now, in general, in British English, quite can actually bring a word down. So what I mean there is if I say something is good or quite good, it means it's kind of less than good. Quite good is not the same as good. You have good and you have quite good. That's the more standard pattern, but a lot of it, again, depends on intonation. If I say, how's your food? Yeah, it's quite good. It's not amazing, but it's acceptable. It's kind of okay. It's fine. That's another loaded word. It sometimes signals polite disappointment. How was the film? Yeah, it's quite good. But the power with this word is very much in the tone and not in the word itself. So maybe I'm pleasantly surprised by something you've given me, some food, and I go, wow, that is quite good, or that's quite good. It's almost like an element of surprise. So again, the intonation is doing the work. This word is all about the intonation, and you need to be really careful with this word. Rather is, honestly, it's a little bit more formal, and it adds a kind of polite intensity. Instead of saying, I'm excited, I could say, wow, I'm rather excited. It sounds quite polite, maybe a little bit formal, but it can also be used, in that kind of way we would maybe use a bit more formal language dramatically. Instead of saying something is strange, I could go, that is rather strange. Again, intonation adds a lot, and it is a rather good word in my opinion. So those were the classics, but now let's move on to some really British examples. And the first one is absolutely. This is strong agreement or strong emphasis without the aggression. Oh, that is absolutely brilliant. Or what you've done is absolutely amazing. Now, we often use this word with positives, but we can use it with negatives as well. You could also say that film was absolutely awful. Made me giggle because that's really strong in my opinion. And we also do use it for strong agreement. Do you like it? Yeah, absolutely. Can you help me? Yeah, absolutely. Actually is a false friend with many languages, but in British English, it usually means in fact. It's like a kind of word that we use to clarify something. So somebody maybe says, oh, Roy loves mushrooms. I could say, actually, I hate them. True story, I hate mushrooms. However, we also use it to make an opinion or something we're saying a little bit stronger, almost as if we're quite surprised. It's actually really good, instead of it's just really good or it's just good. So we've gone from good to really good to actually really good. It's almost like it surprised us, like we thought it was going to be meh, a bit bang average or just awful in general, and we thought, wow, that's actually really good. Now, it doesn't actually have to mean that we were surprised, we're just like strengthening our opinion. So if you give me some food and I'm expecting it to be good, I might just say, that is actually delicious. Simply is quite calm, but it's very final. It's like breaking it down to its, basic point. So if something isn't possible, I could say, that is simply not practical. In other words, it's impossible. This project is simply not going to work. But we can also use it with positives like, she's brilliant. She is simply brilliant. This word kind of removes a bit of noise around the word, and it's why it's so powerful. So you could say she's brilliant, but she is simply brilliant, and there is nothing else to say. Just could be a British softener, like which is, I just wanted to ask, this kind of thing. But we also use it as a kind of word of emphasis. That is just brilliant. Again, in that case, it's very similar to simply. However, we commonly use this word just, and quite a few of the others on this list, in sarcasm. So listen to the difference. That is just brilliant. Sounds actually quite genuine. But maybe my car is on fire outside and I say, oh, that is just brilliant. So be careful with this one. Intonation and tone, as with many of these words, is really, really important. Literally is probably a bit of an overused word. It's used quite emotionally and not actually quite literally. So maybe I go outside, it's pretty cold, and I say, oh, it's literally freezing out there. Maybe it's not literally freezing, but I'm kind of exaggerating. Or he was so funny, I literally died laughing, which is obviously in that case not literal. We're just really adding a bit of emphasis for feeling, not facts. However, I will say, don't overuse this word. And it's almost become a little bit of a cliche. Yes, we still use it to exaggerate things, but in some ways, this word has become a bit meaningless, like just some kind of background noise. Like if I'm really, really hungry, and I say I could literally eat a horse, it's obvious that I couldn't literally eat a horse, but at the same time, if I don't even use the word literally, it still has the same effect. Oh, I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse. It just shows that I'm really, really hungry. So this word on some levels is kind of losing its meaning and just becoming a bit of emphasizing noise. But the best piece of advice I could give about literally is Yes, we use it, please do, but don't overuse it, as I have heard some learners do. Totally is a word that we use for relaxed emphatic agreement. So instead of just saying, I agree, you could say, I totally agree. Gives it a bit more weight. Or if something is fine, now the word fine is pretty loaded, but if we use it genuinely and say, that's fine, I could say, that is totally fine. No, that's totally fine. Notice here, I'm using my positive tones to signal it is actually okay, or I'm okay with it. You wouldn't really use it with things like totally tired or totally exhausted. That doesn't work. But with words like agree, disagree, or fine, you could use the word totally. Honestly is a word that signals openness and sincerity. So honestly, I didn't expect that. Gives a bit more drama to that expression. Or honestly, I am exhausted. It's a bit of a funny one because it's like saying, I'm not lying to you, I am tired, but we use it to add a bit more drama to the sentence. Honestly, it was brilliant. It's almost like we're signaling that it is our honest opinion. Genuinely adds a bit of authenticity. So instead of saying, I'm happy for you, I'm genuinely happy for you. Like, it gives it a bit more sincerity and weight. Or instead of saying, that documentary was interesting, I could say, that documentary was genuinely interesting. And I think this word is great for avoiding misunderstandings or unintended sarcasm, because this word genuinely does make it sound like we're actually thinking and we want you to know that what we're saying is authentic. Yeah, it was genuinely interesting. Massively is a word that we use sometimes to add scale and impact. So when we talk about things that have been helpful or the importance of things, we often use this word. That helped massively, or it is massively important. Now, personally, I don't really use this word, but I do hear it getting used quite a bit, and it is very, very expressive. I am massively annoyed. And before we move on to some more slang ones and also a bit of naughty language, we've already talked about honestly, but we also use the words to be honest and honestly speaking. It prepares the listener for truth with emphasis. So to be honest, I am not happy. Or to be honest, I'm not convinced by what you just said. Honestly speaking sounds a little bit more formal. So we go to a restaurant and somebody says, how was your food? And we go, oh, well, honestly speaking, it wasn't what I expected. Now let's move on to some even more, well, very slang-based ones. First up, we have and a half. We commonly use this after a noun to really emphasize how favorably or unfavorably we feel about something. So, for example, that's not just a problem, that's a problem and a half, mate. In other words, I'm emphasizing how big the problem is. That project is a real job and a half. In other words, we think the task is more intense than we expect, and we don't only use it for negatives. I could see a nice piece of art and I could say, wow, that's a painting and a half. Or only last night, I saw a really amazing dog, and I said, wow, that is a dog and a half, because this dog was huge. Probably almost the same size as me. It was literally, I've used that word there, it was literally a dog and a half. In fact, it was probably 5 times bigger than my dog. One that's a bit more cliche, and I would recommend that you avoid it because it doesn't sound overly professional, but you will hear it, is well. This is a classic bit of slang, but I think it could sound a little bit uneducated to some people. So instead of saying something is good or very good or really good, some people will say that is well good. Instead of nice, well nice. Instead of boring, well boring. It does get used, you will hear it, but I'm putting it on this list so that you know it exists, not necessarily recommending you use it. Now, a lot of the ones we've used on this list have been quite standard ones used across the country, but there are some regional ones as well. Let's point you in the direction of 2. First up, we have dead. I first heard this when I was living in Manchester, so instead of somebody saying, that's really good, they'd say, oh, that's dead good, or that's dead nice, or that's dead interesting. Now, it might have spread a little bit further, but it is more related to kind of the Northwest, or the North in general. And likewise, one that I encountered more commonly in Yorkshire was right. Instead of good, it's right good, or you are right nice. But these are regional, but it's more to make you aware of them. And likewise, when we're talking about making you aware of things, we often use swear words, bad language, to make things stronger, to emphasize what we're saying. Instead of saying something is awful, I could say it's bloody awful. Or instead of amazing, that's bloody amazing. Just adds a little bit of weight to it. Now, bloody is a very, very mild swear word, but you can pretty much get away with it everywhere. But even with bloody, I would act with a little bit of caution in certain situations. But we do also use some other swear words to add a bit of emphasis as well. And I'm not going to use them right now, but you know the ones, particularly the one beginning with F. instead of saying something is nice, you could say it is nice. I'm not going to use the word. Use your imagination. We use the ing form. But you will hear a lot of British people, especially in informal situations like down the pub, swearing to add intensity. Just because I use the word bloody or something stronger doesn't mean it's a negative comment. Bloody good still means it's really, really good. Now, instead of actually swearing, some people do use some euphemisms. Again, I'm going to give you a sort of 4 euphemisms that you could use, but again, you're still kind of saying the bad word, even if you're not actually saying. You're kind of putting that idea in the other person's head, but these euphemisms are not considered as rude as the real swear words. So instead of bloody, you could say bloomin'. That's blooming marvellous, or that's blooming amazing. Again, we could use this one with a bit of sarcasm. Instead of, oh, that's blooming nice. Oh, that's blooming nice, isn't it? Again, a little bit of sarcasm. But again, it adds that little bit of emphasis. Same with the word flipping, which is the replacement of another F word. I'm sure you can use your imaginations. Or effing, which again relates to the F word that we commonly use as a euphemism for that really bad word. Or again, flaming. So instead of nice, I could say it's blooming nice, flipping nice, effing nice, or flaming nice. And technically, I haven't used a bad word once. However, if you kind of use the word effing in the workplace, you're still kind of saying it without saying it. So I would use all these with caution. But it's just to make you aware that British people do commonly use swear words to add that little bit of power. Please do remember to like and hype this video. And remember, there is a free PDF that you can check out these words and learn even more. But thank you very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you in the next one.